Hello and welcome back to Copic in the craft room. Today I am going to work with this Spellbinders stamp. This is one of their cling stamp sets. This one is Phoenix, Arizona, that has kind of these micro dots in the stamp. And I've done one of these before. It was a cactus desert scene. And I did it in a couple different ways. I stamped with Copic ink. I actually colored the stamp and stamped with it. And then I stamped it with a black ink pad and colored it with my Copic. So you could see the difference between the two. I'm gonna try something totally different with this one today. I'm actually gonna stamp with Copic ink again, but I'm gonna use a gray marker, one of my grays. And then I'm gonna color over the top of that to see if I can't get that ink to kind of blend in and create the shading that you can see on the stamp. We will do an experiment. So I'm gonna get this guy attached and start. I'm gonna ink it up with a marker, spray it with my Copic colorless blender, and then stamp with it, pull it off, and we will color it with Copic markers and see what type of effect we get. All right, off we go. So I am setting up my stamp, kind of getting it lined up on my paper and attaching it to the other side. Then I am using a C5 to color over the entire stamp. Now, with these Spellbinder stamps, it's really meant to give you kind of that micro dot, kind of that shading effect. And with this technique, I'm not necessarily going to see those dots. It's going to put that gray in place in all the sections where those dots are. I've sprayed that with colorless blender, and I'm doing it again to get more of that ink off that stamp. And now I'm going to go in and just color this on top of that C5. So this is E04. It's a really pretty earth tone. I think it's going to work well for that base of the red rock. But what I'm hoping is going to happen, and you can kind of see happening, I'm not doing real heavy coloring. This is E09. But that C5 is going to kind of already dull down or desaturate some of that color. And so it adds shading without adding any other layers. So even just that first layer, you could see that shading coming through. Back to E04, and I'm softening those edges. Hopefully you can see how this effect is happening with that C5 underneath, adding just kind of another layer. I haven't done a whole lot of coloring. It's really just kind of one layer of each of those inks and then working on top. And I'm coming in with my colorless blender and I'm going over all of the clouds. And that's really just to soften that C5 even further so that you have kind of a real soft gray cloud effect. The B quadruple 0 is for the sky. And I'm going in around the clouds at this point. I realized a little too late after starting this that this marker is really low on ink, unfortunately. So I'm really having to work it pretty hard if I'm not going to take a break with it and actually refill it, which is what I should be doing. But if I slow down the recording here, you could actually see the tip getting a little bit white, and it's very scratchy where I'm coloring. I'm not super concerned about the edges being super precise in that, because this is going to have a little bit of a watercolor effect anyway. It doesn't have to be really tight and exact. And the edges of those clouds are pretty soft after going over them with the colorless blender anyway. My dog Maisie is in the room with me, so you can hear her shaking. BG 000 is coming in from that bottom edge up. A lot of times with sky, we see a little bit deeper blues near the horizon line and then moving upward from there. So I've just added a touch of that BG 000. And now I'm going in and coloring those balloons. I'm starting with a YR14 on some of the stripes. And really I'm just coloring them. And then a Y35, but you can see how much those colors are different because of the gray is underneath them already. A B12 is going to fill in the other areas of this particular balloon. It's got those gray lines kind of on those different sections of the balloons, kind of sectioning off how that balloon would have those seams along it. And then I'm coming in with the B14 to add a little bit of shading on this section, So I'm going over all the gray lines to kind of re-emphasize them. And then I'm adding a little bit of shading on that right-hand side. And I'm going to soften that with that B12 again. You can see it's very, very little shading, and I have a lot more depth because of that C5 line underneath this all. E35, I'm just adding some small details to the basket and framing of the balloon itself. BV00 is going in for the stripes on the next balloon. You can see where this one has even some highlight sections on those stripes, and it really shows through now. E35 again for the basket. And then B00 for the other stripes on that balloon. Touch of BG000 in where I kind of forgotten it on the in-between on those baskets. BV02 on the stripes, and a B12 to shade on that balloon just a little bit, just to add a little bit of dimension. I think it really adds a ton. E09, I'm going back in one more time on that earth area, the canyon area or the desert area, to add just some detail. So I'm really using the very tip of my brush nib to add some striping. So I feel like that did do what I wanted it to do. I stamped with a C5 and then came back and colored over the top of that. Really the clouds, all I did was come in with that colorless blender. And so as I talked you through that, I hope that all made sense. Again, I love these stamps because I get this really beautiful watercolor effect with my Copic markers, and it's pretty simple and easy to do. I should be able to show this not super fast because it wasn't a super long video, but give you guys a real good sense of how much time it took me. And it was actually from start to finish when I started talking about 25 minutes, so pretty quick for a more complex stamp. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you have not done it yet, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video, and as always, ask questions and make suggestions for new videos. We're always looking for new materials, and I want to make sure that it's aimed for what you guys are looking for. I'm always listening, and I try to respond as quick as possible. Lastly, make sure to join us over at Copic in the Craft Room on Facebook, because we have loads of Copic and crafting inspiration over there as well. Thanks for joining me this week, and have a happy, colorful week.